It is Tuesday, February 17th, 2026, and honestly, if you haven't refreshed your feeds in the last 24 hours, you might basically be running on legacy hardware.
That's no joke.
We talk about shifts in the AI landscape all the time on this show, maybe too much, but yesterday wasn't a shift. It was, I don't know, a tectonic plate snapping.
It really was. You and I have seen a lot of model releases, but the energy around this one is just different.
Completely different. We are talking about Qwen 3.5 from Alibaba. And before anyone rolls their eyes and says, great, another chatbot, let's be very, very clear. This is not a chatbot. This is a signal that the entire game has moved on. The agentic era isn't coming anymore. It just kicked down the front door.
That's the perfect way to put it. To really get why this matters, you have to look at the room we're all standing in.
Okay.
Think of the global AI industry right now as this incredibly exclusive, high-stakes dinner party. For the last year, the head of the table has been, well, it's been the Americans. You've got OpenAI holding court with GPT 5.2, Anthropic's looking very sophisticated with Claude 4.5 Opus, and Google, well, Google has finally found its footing with Gemini. It's been a comfortable US-centric dominance.
They were all just passing the hors d'oeuvres, thinking they had the market cornered.
Exactly. And then yesterday, Alibaba didn't just knock. They walked in like James Bond in a tuxedo suave, incredibly dangerous and armed with tech that frankly makes some of the other guests look a little underdressed.
I like that.
This isn't just about catching up. In some very specific, very high-value ways, Qwen 3.5 is looking to overtake them.
And doing it with a kind of swagger we haven't seen from that side of the Pacific in a while. But let's cut through the marketing fluff. We keep seeing this phrase, the agentic era. Sounds great on a slide deck, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, that's key.
Because for a long time, AI just meant a text box where I ask a question and I get an answer.
Right. That was the chatbot era. It was passive. You drive, the AI navigates. The agentic era is all about autonomy. It's the shift from the AI being a consultant, someone who gives you advice, to the AI being an employee, someone who actually does the work.
So instead of me asking, how do I bake a lasagna, and getting a recipe,
the agentic model says, I've ordered the pasta sheets, I've preheated your smart oven to 375, and I've sent calendar invites to your 3 friends who like Italian food.
Wow. Precisely. It solves the problem, not just answers the question.
It executes, but, and this is the big but, you can't just wish that kind of capability into existence. You need a very specific, very powerful architecture to pull it off.
Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We are going to tear apart the specs of Qwen 3.5. We're going to look at the Titan numbers, the architecture that seems to defy the laws of latency, and we have to talk about why a Chinese model releasing with open weights is probably the biggest news for the global developer community in 5 years.
That open weights aspect is the true disruptor here. But we have to start with the engine.
Okay, let's get into the nuts and bolts. When I first looked at the tech paper, the first number that jumped out was the parameter count. 397 billion parameters. That is a Titan-class model.
It is absolutely massive.
And usually in the world of compute, massive means slow, it means sluggish, expensive, and heavy. But looking at the benchmarks, Qwen 3.5 is fast, like suspiciously fast. So I'm assuming they stuck with the mixture of experts approach, right?
They did, but they refined it. You nailed the intuition there. If this were a dense model where every single parameter had to fire for every single token generated, it would be unusable, just totally unusable.
Right, because you're mobilizing the entire army for every single command.
Exactly. But Qwen 3.5 uses that mixture of experts, or MOE architecture. So imagine that 397 billion parameter count, not as one giant brain, but as a huge library of specialists.
Okay.
You've got your coding expert, your creative writing expert, your math expert, all sitting there waiting.
So when I ask it to write a Python script, it doesn't wake up the creative writing neurons.
Correct. It uses a routing mechanism to select only the relevant experts for that specific task. So while the model has 397 billion parameters of knowledge, it only activates about 17 billion per step.
Which is the sparse concept. You have the brain size of a giant, but the metabolism of a sprinter.
That's a great analogy. And the efficiency stats from the report are just wild. Compared to the previous generation, Qwen 3 Max, this thing is 8.6 to 19 times faster in long context scenarios.
Hold on. Let's pause on long context because this is where it gets really geeky, but it's so important. Usually speed just drops off a cliff when you feed an AI a huge amount of data, right? Like a whole book.
Oh, absolutely. That's the quadratic scaling problem. In a standard transformer model, if you double the amount of text, the computational cost doesn't double, it quadruples. The memory just explodes because every word has to pay attention to every other word.
So eventually you just hit a wall, the model chokes. But Qwen is claiming a 262,000 token context window while maintaining that speed. I saw they're using something called linear attention. Can you break that down for us?
I'll try. So think of standard attention like a cocktail party where everyone has to shake hands with everyone else.
Okay, I'm with you.
As you add more people, the number of handshakes just grows exponentially. It becomes chaos. Linear attention changes the rules. Instead of everyone shaking hands, everyone just drops their business card into a central bowl. When you need info, you just check the bowl.
So the memory usage stays constant no matter how many people or tokens are in the room.
Exactly. So whether I feed it a 5-page essay or a 500-page legal document, the memory footprint is roughly the same. That's the magic of their gated delta networks. It lets it process these massive contexts without slowing down or, bankrupting the person running the server.
That explains the speed. And they're also using FP8 quantization, right?
Yep, floating point 8. It's basically a way of compressing the numbers used in the math. It cuts memory usage by about 50% without, and this is key, without losing intelligence. So it's faster, it's 60% cheaper to run, and yet it's smarter.
Smarter and more observant. We have to talk about the senses. The source material highlights native multimodality. Now, we've seen multimodal models before. GPT-4v could see images, but it always felt like they just glued a pair of eyes onto a text model.
It was a patch job. It really was. They were basically translating the image into a text description and then processing that text. It's like reading a description of a painting versus actually seeing the painting.
Right.
Native multimodality means Qwen 3.5 was trained from the very start to understand pixels and audio waves just as fluently as it understands text. It's all just tokens to the model.
And the capabilities are staggering. Report says it can process video up to 2 hours long.
2 hours. Just think about the corporate application there. You could feed it a 2-hour quarterly earnings call, video and audio, and it won't just transcribe it. It understands the nuance. It sees the CEO's facial expression. It hears the hesitation in the CFO's voice.
It captures the vibe, not just the transcript.
That's it. And because it handles 201 languages, it's a true polyglot. But the real game changer is how this vision capability feeds back into that agentic idea we started with.
Right. Because if an agent is going to do work for me, it has to see what I see. It has to look at my screen.
Spot on. This is where visual coding comes in. The sources mention it can automate GUI's graphical user interfaces.
So I can show it a screenshot of a website and say, make it look like this, but use my color palette.
Or even more complex. Here's a screenshot of this buggy app, fix the layout. Because it understands the visual structure natively, it writes better code to replicate it. It's not guessing.
I loved that trip planning example in the notes. It felt so real. It wasn't just find me a hotel in Tokyo.
No, it was so much more nuanced. The model analyzed photos of the hotels to gauge the atmosphere. Is this a party hotel or a quiet business hotel? It read the menus in the photos to check for dietary options. It looked at the maps.
And the 8-person dinner party example?
Right. Dealing with dietary restrictions, schedules, finding a venue. It handled it like a professional event planner because it can see all the constraints. That is the definition of agentic.
Okay, I have to play the skeptic for a second. This all sounds incredible, the James Bond of AI, like you said. But marketing departments are paid to make things sound incredible. We need to look at the scoreboard. Does Qwen 3.5 actually compete with the American giants?
I was waiting for you to ask this because the numbers are honestly the most shocking part of this whole release. Let's start with reasoning. MMLU Pro.
The SAT for AI, the big one.
It is. Qwen 3.5 scores 87.8%.
Okay, give me the context. Where's GPT 5.2?
GPT 5.2 is sitting at 87.5%. Claude 4.5 Opus is at 87.2%.
So, it beat them.
It beat them.
Now, I know some people listening might say 0.3%, that's a rounding error, but at this level, that's huge, isn't it?
It's massive. When you are at the absolute peak, squeezing out another 0.3% is like shaving a tenth of a second off a world record. It proves Alibaba isn't just drafting behind OpenAI anymore, they are passing them.
What about coding? Because for the developer audience, that's everything.
This is where the gap widens. On SWE Bench Verified, which is the gold standard for real-world software engineering tasks.
Not just write a function, but fix this GitHub issue.
Exactly. Qwen scores 76.4%.
In the competition.
GPT 5.2 is at 75.8%. Gemini 3 Pro is trailing behind that.
That is a significant statement. If I'm a developer, and I see a model that is free to download and beats the paid API from OpenAI on coding, that's an easy decision.
It's a no-brainer, and it keeps going. Graduate reasoning, 88.7%.
Yeah.
Video understanding, 87.5%. It is effectively trading blows with and, often beating the absolute top-tier model.
The lead has effectively changed hands, or at least it's a tie game.
It's a tie game, but one team is giving away their playbook for free.
Let's talk about that. The open weight revolution. We touched on it, but I want to dig in. GPT 5.2 is a black box. I pay a subscription. I send my data to OpenAI. They send an answer back. I don't own it.
Correct. You are renting intelligence.
But Qwen 3.5 is on Hugging Face right now. I can download the weights.
That changes the entire economics of innovation. Think about a startup in Bangalore, or a researcher in Lagos, or a privacy-focused company in Berlin. They might not be able to afford millions in API fees.
Or they might be legally prohibited from sending customer data to a U.S. server.
That's a huge one. With Qwen, they take the model, put it on their own secure servers, and it's theirs. They can fine-tune it on their specific data. They control everything. This democratizes top-tier intelligence in a way we haven't seen since Llama, but this is a step function higher in capability.
Yeah, and the use cases are already popping up. I saw people on X going nuts over the OCR capabilities.
Optical character recognition. Yeah, it sounds boring, but it's a huge problem.
Reading scanned PDFs, right?
Qwen 3.5 is reading blurry, crumpled receipts perfectly. It's pulling data from messy tables that confuse other models. And with that huge 262K context window, you can dump a whole crate of documents into it at once.
The community also seems to love the comparisons to Grok 4.2 there.
Yeah, that rivalry is fun to watch. The consensus seems to be that for visual coding, where the AI needs to see the app to build it, Qwen is outperforming Grok. It's just more robust.
How did they get it to be so robust? I mean, we know about the architecture, but the behavior, that agentic stuff, that requires different training, doesn't it?
It does. You can't just train an agent on next token prediction. If you do that, it might write a great poem, but it will fail at booking a flight if the website throws an error.
It gives up too easily.
Exactly. Alibaba used extensive reinforcement learning, or RL, across millions of diverse environments. They basically put the model in a simulation bootcamp.
Like a flight simulator for AI.
Navigate this menu, find the refund button, solve this puzzle, and they did it over multi-turn environment.
Telling it has to remember what it did 10 minutes ago to solve the problem now.
Correct. Consistency is key for an agent. If it hallucinates halfway through, it fails. The RL training beats that out of it and reinforces logical, step-by-step planning.
Okay, I'm getting swept up in the hype again. It beats GPT 5.2, it sees video, it's free, it's fast. There has to be a catch.
There's always a catch.
What is it? The catch is physics. We are still talking about a 397 billion parameter model.
So I can't run this on my gaming laptop.
Absolutely not. Even with all the efficiency tricks, you need enterprise-grade hardware. You need a rack of H100s or the new Blackwells to run this with any kind of real-time speed.
So the democratization has a hardware barrier. It's free software. But the entry ticket is a $20,000 GPU cluster.
At a minimum. So for the individual hobbyist, you're likely going to be using a smaller quantized version, or you're still renting compute from the cloud. You just won't be paying Alibaba for the IP.
And it's not like the competition is just, sleeping.
No. ByteDance released Seed 2.0 at the exact same time. It's an arms race over there, too. And we all know OpenAI has GPT 5.3 looming. Qwen 3.5 is king of the hill today.
Yeah.
Next Tuesday. Who knows?
There's also the safety aspect. We talked about agents doing things.
That's the other catch, operational risk. Right. If a chatbot hallucinates, you get a weird essay.
If an agent hallucinates and you've given it access to your email and your bank account,
It could accidentally wire money to a Nigerian prince.
or delete a production database because it thought that was the most efficient way to clean up storage, giving autonomous access to tools and the web brings a level of risk we haven't really grappled with yet.
That's a terrifying thought. I solved the problem, the full hard drive, boss. I deleted everything.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. God. So let's bring this all home. What does this mean for the person listening to us right now?
I think it means we have crossed a threshold. The agentic era isn't marketing speak anymore. It's the reality of the software stack. AI plans and executes. That's the headline. But the sub-headline is arguably more important. Innovation is no longer a monopoly of Silicon Valley.
That's the geopolitical shift.
It is. Alibaba has democratized access to top-tier intelligence. By releasing Qwen 3.5 with open weights, they've given every developer in the world a tool that rivals the best proprietary models. It just levels the playing field.
It's an exciting time. A little terrifying with the database deleting agents, but definitely exciting. Before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. You mentioned how these agents can plan our lives better than we can.
They're getting there.
So here's the question I'm left with. If an AI agent can navigate GUIs, visually code better than a junior developer, and plan your life better than you can, are we moving from using AI as a tool to having AI as a manager?
That's the real question, isn't it? At what point do we stop directing them and they start directing us?
And with these auto modes that adapt their own thought processes, how long until the agent surprises you with a solution you didn't even ask for because it decided it knew better?
That is where it gets really interesting, and probably where the next deep dive begins.
Something to mull over. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Qwen 3.5. We'll see you next time.